Hello guys, and welcome to another video. And this one we're going to be looking at the Chieftain and the Guardian Ascendancies, as these two were reworked in this league. And back when these reworks were first announced, I made a video for each of these where I discussed what I thought of the changes, and quite a few things have changed since then actually. For example, some of the Chieftain nodes were actually updated right before the league launch, and of course the Guardian minions are now known, and they weren't known at the time. So, how have these Ascendancies fared in the new league? Let's take a look. And firstly, the variance of play rates between these two Ascendancies and the rest of the Ascendancies in the game across all of the different leagues is crazy, but I think this is expected to an extent, because both the new Chieftain and the new Guardian offer power from the Ascendancy, which isn't really reliant on great gear. In the case of the Guardian, you just have the extremely strong minions which provide auras for a bunch of free damage, and of course the Sentinel of Radiance, which not only tanks a bunch of damage on behalf of the player, but also is able to kill trash mobs right through the campaign and into maps. And for the Chieftain, the power of this Ascendancy is a bit more reliant on better gear, for example lots of fire resistance and maximum fire resistance to take advantage of the defensive aspects. But even without incredible gear, these nodes are useful due to the passive tree and things like Purity of Fire. And I think for these reasons you can see how popular these Ascendancy reworks are in the Ruthless game modes. Guardian is topping every single Ruthless League, which is incredible, and Chieftain is sitting up there too in the top 2 or 3 played Ascendancies. And really, this makes a lot of sense, because Guardian especially can focus on defensive gearing and spec on the tree, because it gains so much offense from the Ascendancy. While Chieftain is essentially the opposite, where a huge amount of defense is gained from the Ascendancy, and mainly the Chieftain Ascendancy just offers incredible ease of gearing, even in Ruthless, where gear is scarce and you can still reliably cap resistances easily. So I think for the most part, the popularity of those Ascendancies is expected in Ruthless. But what about the other core game modes? Well, in these, the variance is a lot more glaring. We can see in the Softcore Trade League, Chieftain is almost at the bottom of play rate along with the Assassin and Gladiator, which I think is very understandable considering that the bonuses gained from the Ascendancy are nowhere near as impactful when you're able to just patch up any problems with things like resistance by buying decent resistance gear early on in progression on any Ascendancy. And then you're left with a bit of a hollow shell of an Ascendancy really, one that doesn't have too much going for it. Meanwhile, Guardian finds itself only slightly more popular in this league too. And when looking at the most popular builds on Guardian, the top of which is SRS, the SRS category is dominated by Necromancer in Softcore Trade. And I think this is really one of those issues which I did see brought up by a few people. I think Ghazi said something like this, that really, what builds does Guardian excel at where another Ascendancy isn't already superior? At least for SRS, the majority of players are playing Necromancer, and for the second most popular Guardian build using Summoned Skeletons, the play rate is pretty much split right down the middle between Necromancer and Guardian. And I think that Guardian will be one of those classes that takes a while to settle into the meta, because the Reworks class is a lot less pigeonholed into minion builds, and is a bit more open to interpretation. So I could see this Ascendancy gaining more popularity in other build areas over time. I've seen a few people already experiment with this, for example Captain Lance, who made a Spectral Throw build on the Guardian, using the new Rakiata's Dance unique sword, and I could see more of that as time goes on. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 leagues for a new class to settle in. And what about the less popular leagues? Well, you can see a trend here through Solo Self-Found Softcore League and then into Hardcore Trade and Hardcore Solo Self-Found, where both the Chieftain Ascendancy and Guardian Ascendancy get gradually more popular as relative league difficulty increases, with Guardian actually being the second most popular Ascendancy right behind Juggernaut in the Hardcore Solo Self-Found League. That's quite an impressive feat. Meanwhile, Chieftain is faring much better in this league too with 6% play rate. And once again, this goes back to the value of these Ascendancies when more restrictions and difficulty acquiring gear is applied. And personally, I have no experience with the new Guardian, but I have played quite a bit of the new Chieftain, and I was pleasantly surprised with the Hinakora notable especially. That's the low chance explode node. It's just got a giant area effect and is really satisfying. And overall, I'd say these Ascendancy reworks turned out to be a lot less disappointing than they originally looked like they would be. However, I would say that the Chieftain probably needs changes in non-Ruthless game modes, because a lot of the build options are really struggling to get any sort of meaningful value from the Uber Lab. That's the 4th Ascendancy notable pickup. Many builds just don't have a good option going for them when it comes to that 4th notable, and so it just ends up being a 3 notable Ascendancy, which is unfortunate. I'd just love to see the dual node on Chieftain especially completely reworked. That one is really bizarre for me. Anyway, that's it guys, a look at the newly reworked Ascendancies and how they are faring in this new league. I'm going to be doing a few more of these league trend videos as I did last league, looking at some of the trends for unique items. But that's going to be it for this one. A shout out as always to my channel members, thank you for your ongoing support, and thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.